master's thesis, charted a course for oceans education and high school science curriculum. I was like, didn't get the day off today to be here, so yay! So much more exciting for me. I love my kids, but it's nice to be away too. So I've always loved the ocean. I didn't really become interested in oceans education until a couple years into teaching. I really started to notice that our kids are not getting a lot of ocean concepts. They could essentially go through grade 9, through the end of their high school career, and not learn one thing about the ocean. So when I started incorporating a little bit more oceans concepts into my classes, I was really surprised at the level of ocean knowledge they had, or I should say the lack of oceans knowledge they had. So you can tell I'm a teacher. I have a nice little outline, because that's what I like, linear. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some context from my research problem, some of the things that I found, some of the things that are going on in Canada that are so exciting, as we just heard from Haley about some really exciting stuff. And then I'll go through some of my results and finally look at some case studies, 2 specific courses, Science 10 and Oceans 11. So in a global sense, our oceans are in trouble, and you guys all know this, you're here because of this. But really, it's because of what we've been doing as humans, so pollution, all of that good stuff. But our oceans really are the source of all of our, a good portion of our oxygen. They absorb so much of our anthropogenic carbon dioxide. So despite this, we're still in a lot of trouble. This is actually taken from Marine Reserve in Belize, the part of Honduras Marine Reserve. And you can see there's all sorts of garbage. That's a marine reserve, that's a protected space, so you can imagine what the rest of our oceans are looking like, which is kind of unfortunate. So to bring it to a local perspective, in Nova Scotia, and I know some of you aren't from Nova Scotia, but here in Nova Scotia, about 70% of us live in the coastal areas. You could argue that our province is coastal entirely. If you've driven around the city, you've seen that on our license plate it says Canada's Ocean Playground, so we're designated as Canada's Ocean Playground, and that's not necessarily unfounded, because 7,579 kilometers of coastline in Nova Scotia, and we're tiny, so that's pretty impressive. We have post-secondary universities here that all of them offer ocean-related post-secondary programs. Our provincial GDP, the ocean sector industry, brings in $5 billion, excuse me, and employs over 30,000 people. So that's a big industry for Nova Scotia. We have, per capita, the most marine scientists with PhDs in marine-related subjects in the world. That's impressive. We're not that big, so we have a lot of resources here in Nova Scotia. So in considering all that, I was looking at my research problem, which is why in light of the importance of oceans in Nova Scotia, the availability of ocean scientists, and that's my research problem, and the availability of teaching resources. Why are oceans concepts not being addressed in high school science curriculum? So looking at resources, there are tons of them. So there's a big gap between what's getting incorporated into the classroom and what's available out there. So we have initiatives all over Canada, and we're actually here because of one, CANOE, Canada's Network for Oceans Education. They're based out of BC. They connected with some researchers, with educators, and trying to bring some real-world, applicable lesson plans to teachers. There's the Ocean Networks Canada, which has doing exactly the same thing in a different way, bringing educators some really great resources. The Huntsman Marine Center is in New Brunswick, so it's very close. They offer educational experiences for kids. They can go there, they can take part, so really great. And the Ocean Learning Partnership, which is in BC, or in Newfoundland. This one's really exciting. It's kind of a little bit different than Ocean School, but it's paired up with the university memorial, so kids can go and take part in some really good science, so that's awesome. Looking at it from a local level, we have some really great things happening here. We have the Institute, the International Oceans Institute, which is working with the Department of Education to incorporate science curriculum to get some more ocean concepts in there, specifically junior high, grade 8. And we have Oceans NS, which is providing PD for educators. And then, of course, you heard from Haley. We have Ocean School, which is developing, and I won't talk a lot about that, but in keeping with ocean optimism, I really do think that this is going to change the face of oceans in our schools. It's very exciting. Okay, so I wanted to do a couple different things with my research project. I wanted to look at the Nova Scotia High School curriculum. So looking at how much ocean content is being addressed. So I chose to look at the Halifax Regional School Board. It's the most populated school board, and you can see it catches kind of from here to here, which is a huge part of Nova Scotia. It extends to Sheet Harbour, inland to Muscatata, and then back down here to Halifax. It consists of 16 high schools, rural and urban, so a wide diversity of kids. There's approximately 150 science teachers. So my first objective was to look at the curriculum. So I wanted to look at all of the different science courses, so from Science 10, biology, chemistry, physics, the IB program. And if I could just give an honorable or dishonorable mention to the IB Environmental Systems and Societies course. IB is an international program, a course on environmental systems and societies that does not have any outcomes related to the ocean, which is a problem. So I wanted to look at that in Nova Scotia, and I looked at the Oceans 11 course, which I knew would have oceans concepts, but I more wanted to look at that in terms of how it's being perceived. I've taught it, I've seen it, so I wanted to get kind of the overall perception of that. And what I did was I looked at content analysis through all the curriculum, and this is what I found. So, very much lacking in terms of ocean concepts, with the exception of the Oceans 11 course. So we did keyword searches, and we're just finishing up our analysis right now, but it's very minimal, very, very minimal. This was a word wall. After I completed a few interviews with some teachers, I kind of created a word wall, and you can see that some of the words that pop out are important and essential, but they're also paired with words like devalues, per course, that kind of thing. So I think it really does, that is very representative of, excuse me, of what I've seen in my research so far. Okay, so my second and third objectives were really focused on the Halifax Regional School Board teachers. So I went and interviewed 17 teachers, and I really wanted to know how they were incorporating ocean concepts into their classrooms, if they were, and what were the challenges and barriers to doing that, what were they seeing. So I had 17 teachers, I asked them 25 questions. They were from all over, so various different schools, various different backgrounds in science, various ranges of teaching experience. And what I found was, I asked them sort of a series of questions, training and education, personal perspectives, and sort of anything to do with challenges and barriers. So when I asked them about oceans training and education, I asked them first, did you receive any training in your Bachelor of Education? One teacher said that they had a professor who was interested in oceans, so they did a couple activities on the ocean. That was the extent of it. So absolutely no training. I think all but 3 got their BEDs here in Nova Scotia. So they're being trained here in Nova Scotia to teach here in Nova Scotia, and they're not getting educated on ocean concepts. And what I did find was that they would have been helpful. Some of them, no background in marine science, no education, teaching oceans. So definitely would be helpful for them to have some kind of background. They all indicated that that they feel that they would be interested in PD, that training in oceans wouldn't just help them teaching oceans. There's so many other courses that they could tie that in. So they are interested in really finding out more about this. Okay. So some personal perspective questions. Every teacher I talked to, whether they were from Nova Scotia, the majority were, or not, said that they love the ocean. They think of relaxation and recreation, and of course, being science teachers, the connection to the ocean, to the rest of our world is implicit. So they all indicated that they felt it was really important that our youth have that connection. They felt that our youth do have a connection, but their knowledge. So Haley did a study before, and she kind of emphasized that. They love the ocean, they just don't know as much as they should. So when we were talking about why it's important for our youth to be connected to the ocean, so a few things popped up. Proximity, we're here, we live it, it's every day in our life. From an economic standpoint, it's huge in Nova Scotia. And the global importance, it affects everything we do. I actually, when I started going through this and I started talking to teachers about how important it is for our kids to be connected to the ocean, I sort of took advantage a little bit of my position. I have at least 90 kids in front of me every day, ranging from Science 10 to Bio 12, Bio 11, Oceans, With the exception of my oceans class, I asked my kids, I said, has anybody taken oceans? And they're all like, I said, okay, is anybody going to take oceans? Same thing. So I had maybe one class with one with none, and another couple in a different class. So I said, how come? Why are we taking oceans? It's a great course. I teach it. Why are we taking this? And they said, well, I want to do science in university. And so in the long and short, they have to take chemistry, they have to take biology, they have to take physics, and they just don't have room. As an elective, it wasn't appealing. It's not perceived as an academic course. So of the couple that were going to take it, when I talked to them individually, I said, oh, that's great. Are you really interested? Sure. Why are you taking oceans? It's my second science. I don't want to take any more science. I want my science, and when I'm done, it seems like it'll be an easy way to do that. So perception is that it's an easy course, it's a broad course for kids who are interested in doing science. And I have kids going to do marine science at MUN here at Dal. They're not interested in the course because it doesn't help them get to where they need to go. So that's, I think, the problem. When I did ask some of my kids, if we had an oceanography course that met the components of physics and chemistry and all of that sort of stuff, would you be interested? And there was an overwhelming yes. So the interest is there, but the course is perceived causes some challenges. So some of the challenges and opportunities with this is when we incorporate ocean concepts into the course, I think it depends on the curriculum outcomes. Teachers are right now anyway, are very limited in what they can teach because we're given outcomes that we have to meet. We have very full science courses, so we are struggling to meet the outcomes as we go. And to add more to that is not necessarily feasible for a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers do not have marine background. I think 2 of the teachers I talked to contacted me specifically because they had marine backgrounds. None of the other teachers did. So to be comfortable with material and teach it to a group of students is very difficult if you don't have the background. And time is definitely an issue. Those who did, and there were several who incorporated it into Science 10, said it was very well received. Students definitely have a connection, especially here in Nova Scotia. They have some childhood connections, so they can relate to it. So it was well received. And just to talk about 2 specific courses and how they can help us improve ocean concepts into the classroom. Science 10 I chose for a couple reasons. It is a mandatory course, so all students in high school have to take Science 10 to graduate. And it was the one course, unanimously, with all the teachers I talked about, said, we could put more oceans into Science 10. So it's broken up into 4 units: sustainability of ecosystems, chemical reactions, motion, and weather dynamics. So sustainability of ecosystems, oddly enough, does not have any explicit outcomes about the ocean. So when you're talking sustainability, it seems, I don't know that you can talk about sustainability and not talk about the ocean. But all of our textbooks are terrestrial, all of our food chains, nutrient cycles. I think there might be a little blurb about eutrophication, but that's it. So, all of those things that we're talking about here in Nova Scotia are all terrestrial based. They don't connect our daily life to what we're teaching in the classroom. So there's tons of space in sustainability where we could include ocean concepts. Chemical reaction, we talk about how reactions occur, and there's also a unit on acids and bases. So ocean acidification, you can talk about how carbon dioxide goes to carbonic acid, changes the pH in the ocean. It fits explicitly with the outcomes, and I've just been given my 1 minute. I don't want to get squirted, so I'm going to hurry. Weather dynamics, obviously, it fits everywhere there. So, Oceans 11, very quickly. Obviously, this course was designed to increase student understanding of oceans education, to give an introduction. When I talked to students about this, they felt that the curriculum was really good. The curriculum is strong, it's academic, but it looks very different in the classroom. So again, a second science is not promoted well in the schools. It's not given any resources. And to very quickly quote one of my participants, she said, there's no books. You have no resources. It's a terrible course to teach because you have no resources. So you're not giving teachers anything to be successful with. And I think that's reflected. Okay. Primary conclusions. We are definitely in need of programs like Ocean School and that for incorporating oceans into our schools. And in keeping with the theme of oceans optimism, I really do think there's lots of great initiatives, canoe, Ocean School, that are going to do that. So thank you very much. Thanks for